Thank you for joining us today. We're definitely looking forward to talking to you guys about data security in very practical, day-to-day ways that you can think about it as a stock administrator or as any type of administrator that may be dealing with employee or sensitive data. Mark and I are not necessarily data security experts, but we handle it a lot every day, and so we're here to share our learnings with you. Before we get started, I just wanted to touch on who SOS is in case you don't know or you haven't come across us yet. SOS is essentially one of the oldest and most established stock plan administration companies in the US. We were recently acquired by a company called All Shares, and that now makes us able to expand our breadth to a global setting as well. So now we are looking at being a premier provider in the global environment as well. Um, and we're here to help our clients by delivering peace of mind and providing confident, accurate administration support for your equity plans. Oops, went too fast. But before we get started, definitely wanted to take a minute to introduce Mark and myself. I am the VP of SOS operations at SOS, and what that basically means is I'm managing the behind the scenes administration for stock and option solutions, making sure we have the correct infrastructure and technology to provide the best services to our clients. And so data security has become something that I'm focused on more and more as we ensure that we're providing top tier support for our clients and working with people like Mark to make sure we have everything in place to best support our clients. Mark, would you like to take a minute to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thanks, Vanessa. My name is Mark Tipton, and I'm excited to speak with everyone here today on this topic, share some of what we've learned over the years. I'm a relationship manager here at SOS, and I get to work with our clients to make sure their satisfaction and to help navigate any changes they have to their services here. And so with that, we can jump right on into our slides here.
Yep. Before we get started, and Mark's going to take it away with our first of the five things that we want everybody to know. I just wanted to point out that we do have a Q&A box open and available for you to drop in your questions. We'll try to address all the questions at the end of the call, so please feel free to drop those in and we'll take a look at those towards the end of the webinar. Also, if you go to our resources section of the Zoom webinar, there is a data security toolkit that we've created that you can download that will follow along and reinforce the information that we're talking about today. So with that, I'll let you take it away first, Mark.
All right, thank you. So what exactly is sensitive data in the equity world? Well, as you can see, there's a few things that we've listed out here. The first up is personally identifiable information, which you might know as PII, and that's for our participants. And that's anything that you'd find in either your HRIS system or your equity platform, such as name, tax ID, address, bank account, etc. Anything related to your financial and equity grant data that ties back to your PII compensation data, which can be very sensitive, especially internally, as far as who companies want to see that information. Then you have your insider information, your MNPI, material non-public information, and that's anything that can move the stock price up or down. And then you have your keys to the kingdom, your administrative and access credentials. And then finally, your legal and regulatory data. Those are trade secrets. Those might be your internal information regarding corporate actions that are coming up, such as mergers, acquisitions, stock splits, special dividends, and repurchases. So the next slide here. So where does this risk live? We have manual processes, technology gaps. Um, Automation is great and it greatly reduces the risk, but it doesn't fully eliminate it. But anything certainly that's manual carries the risk of human error, and that's maintaining things like maintaining plan information on spreadsheets. Anytime you're making manual entries in your HRIS or equity platforms, and then in stock administration, what we've seen over the years is that when there's an error, there's cascading effects down the line that can be very costly in terms of time and money to fix those. Then we have multiple systems and internal groups that don't necessarily speak with each other. So in addition to your HRS and equity platforms, your legal and accounting finance teams might have information that need to integrate. And so if there's not good integration, those that can be a risk. Next is our key person dependency. Sorry, this is an area most often that we see with our clients, which is a single point of failure. This one typically it's one person that really knows all the different aspects of the plan, all the areas internally that touch equity. And one of the things we say is that you're one winning lottery ticket away from potential disaster. Next up is data accuracy and compliance. As with everything, garbage in, garbage out. It all starts with clean data. And then compliance really comes down to well-documented processes and procedures. And then you have communication gaps that can happen. Again, when you have multiple internal teams that all touch equity, we all, unless we're very intentional about it, we tend to work in silos, and then everybody does their part without full knowledge of how everything else works together. And then operational control deficiencies, that really just ties back to those process and procedure documentation. So I'll turn it over to Vanessa.
Thanks, Mark. So how do we train our teams to properly handle data? Of course, we all have to go through annual data security trainings. Our companies usually require this and conduct this. But it's really important to tie that back to how your team in your department applies that knowledge and that learning to the data that you work with. So taking the time to share your experiences and to talk about the risks associated with the data that you work with, ask questions. When you're getting ready to send that file, or who is responsible for processing certain transactions, how do we make sure that we're sending this over correctly? Where do we securely send payroll files? Stopping and asking those questions in congruence or in alignment with what you've just learned will really help make it applicable to your team. And also reviewing the types of data that you handle on a daily basis, and what is the security level associated with each form of data. Can this be emailed? What has to be sent through a secure portal? Making sure that you're aware of the sensitivity of the data that you interact with will definitely help your team be more aware of how it should be treated. And that's all part of fostering a data-driven and a data-centric culture. A great way to think about security level is the data of the data that you're working with is to adopt the pause and verify methodology. To always pause and check what you're doing when you're handling certain sensitive data before sending that mass email or uploading a grant file or transferring information. You're making sure to pause and confirm that the email addresses that you're using are correct. Do you have the right name of the file that you're getting ready to send? Is this the proper person who should be receiving it? So always taking that minute to pause before you're doing anything that is related to handling critical data. And also, being sure to foster an environment where team members feel safe to ask questions or to report when there is an issue. We want to make sure that nobody is covering up or not reporting data sensitive situations in a situation where there is potentially a data leak or a data mishandling. Time is of the essence. And so we don't want to find out about it after the fact. We want our team to feel like they can come forward right away. And on that note, catching people doing it right. When you see somebody who's properly handling data or potentially making recommendations to a process that would help secure sensitive data, be sure to call that out and recognize it. Most people learn more from positive reinforcement than negative reinforcement. And lastly, figure out ways that we can introduce automation and audits into our SOPs. And so there's a certain level of risk involved with human error or when there's human manual processes. So looking for ways that we can introduce automation is always going to be helpful, like Mark said. in helping us secure our data, but it's not foolproof. So having audit controls built in to your processes is going to help ensure that you're handling the data correctly and that you're following your processes that you've documented for your team. Oh, you're on mute, Mark.
Rookie mistake. So who should have access to what data? So we have first up our employees and participants who should really only have access to their own information so they can see their account balances, tax forms, bank information. Um, and then we have equity administrators and HR managers. These are typically the people making access or updates to the equity platform, so they should have full view and edit access. Some clients allow their executives, founders, and board members to have some access. We don't typically see that. Typically, we see those folks having um, access to their own information, but not really company-wide information. Again, it goes back to controls. Your legal team, typically they're able to see everything internally at the company side anyway. So it might make sense to give them full view only access. And then your finance team should have restricted access to see everything that's going to impact their journal entries, expensing, things like that. They don't necessarily need to see individual information.
All right. And when we're thinking about the type of data that we're working with and the vendors we might be using, it's always good to have a list of questions or knowledge yourself and how that data will be handled. Many clients that we work with now do have their own compliance teams. Their IT teams are sending out a series of questionnaires for vendors to complete. I have a lot of those that come across my desk. Fortunately, having a SOC 2 certification helps us be able to very quickly and easily answer those questions. Many of the vendors that you're working with will probably have some type of certification or compliance a report that they can provide to you, which would indicate that they have gone through those security protocol processes to ensure that they're properly handling your data. But there are definitely some questions that are important for you as a stock plan administrator to ask your vendors so that you know exactly how your data is going to be handled. And these are some questions that you can ask that might help you feel more comfortable and ensure that your employee data in particular is being protected. So the first one would be, who will have access to my employee data and how is that access controlled? A company with good security controls is going to have a process for limiting who has access to your data. And it should usually be only those that are working on your account or play a role in the services being provided to your company. And so, you verifying that you know who that is at any point in time is important so that you have that control over how your data is being handled. What compliance certificates do your vendor have? This day and age, in our digital age and the threat level that we have now with data security, this is really a must-have and no longer a nice to have. Any vendor that you're working with that would be touching PII should have some form of certification or acknowledgement that they can share with you that proves that they have those processes in place to securely handle your data and protect your employees. How will you securely share files? Email is not usually the right answer. I think we all probably know that by now. Many of your vendors are going to be working in portals or have platforms that you should be uploading your data to. Those are probably becoming the most commonplace now. There are still some providers that may encrypt emails. I would say that password protected files are really no longer a secure method to transfer data files back and forth between an outside party. Email internally is usually a bit more secure and is contained within your company's security walls. But anytime you're sending a file outside of your company, it is no longer protected. So making sure that you feel comfortable with the answer that your vendor is providing and that you have the proper access and the right people on your team have access to that platform. much like Mark just covered, who should have access to what data. We want to make sure that the right people are being added to that platform so that you're still able to protect and lock down that data. How will you be notified in the event of a breach? If a company has a well-documented incident response plan, they will be required to notify you within a certain time frame if there's been a data breach. And so it's good for you to know what that is. If they don't have a good answer for you when it comes to a data breach, or they don't give you a specific time frame, that may be an indicator that they don't have a well-documented, proper incident response plan in place. Most of the different security provision, I'm sorry, the security certifications do require this. So your vendor should have this in place. Some red flags to look for when you're asking these questions would be vague answers. So if somebody is saying simply, we follow best practices, well, can you explain those to me? Which best practices? What does that look like for your firm? Trying to dig a little bit deeper. And if they're reluctant to disclose any of that information, that's definitely a red flag as well. If they're unable to provide a recent SOC 2 report or any other certification that they may have obtained to document their control processes in place, that's definitely a red flag as well. And so, many organizations, sorry, do focus on SOC 2 certified partners because that is part of the risk management strategy that our company has and that other companies have. It's a way to gain confidence that those companies have controls in place and that they have processes for maintaining those controls. So it's one thing to have those controls and those policies, but a SOC 2 audit and many other audits actually test that there's a maintenance to that process and that the company is regularly following those processes over a period of time. So in closing, we just wanted to say that data security threats are definitely on the rise and becoming more sophisticated. And we've all probably heard the term data security is everyone's responsibility, not just IT's. And so we wanted to make data security understandable and accessible to anybody at a day-to-day level. As a service provider, we've become very conscientious of our practices and how we work with our client data. And so we wanted to share some of those learnings with you and hope that you can benefit from adopting some of these practices or even just this thought process when you're dealing with sensitive data. And so we do have, like I said at the top of the call, we have our toolkit that is located in the resource section of the webinar today. You can also expect to find it in your email following this webinar. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A right now, and we'll take a look at those and read them off and address any questions that might have come in along the way.
So
All right. Mark, can you see the Q&A? I'm trying to get to it right now. If you could read them off, that'd be great if there are any.
yeah, so we have one here that says, how do your clients share documents with you? And I can speak to that a little bit. So we use a system called Equitrack, which is powered by Jira. It's our ticketing system, and that allows us to securely share files back and forth with our clients. And then most equity platforms have some sort of either file repository or file sharing platform where you already have to have your access credentials to get in, and you're able to share documents back and forth with the platform or any providers that might also have access to that system. All right. Let's see here. What are some best practices for training on how to handle data? That one's probably better for you, for Vanessa.
Sure. Well, I do think, like I said, most of our companies are requiring it. There's probably annual general data security trainings available through your company. Uh, I find that just having the conversations with your team and applying it to what you're doing helps people really absorb and apply the information. You can sit in a webinar and you can read about or hear about what is PII, How should I, what is an external threat? What's phishing? All the different ways now that there are threats approaching us on a daily basis and coming after our data. But I think talking about it amongst your team, um, asking questions, stopping and pausing, like we talked about, that would allow you to say, this doesn't seem right. Let me ask someone else. Are great ways to just ensure that security. There are data security uh, programs out there that are focused on PII. So I would definitely look for any kind of training that is focused more on PII, since that's what most stock administrators, that's the biggest risk that most stock administrators have at this point.
All right. Let's see. Let's see. What's a best practice to reduce internal communication gaps? Um, so one of the things that we've seen clients do is to have kind of like a quarterly check-in or quarterly roundtable with all the relevant groups, your HR, finance, legal, accounting, payroll, anybody that touches the equity plan. Again, just to call out different things that might be coming up, because again, we can make assumptions, but those meetings are good times to really call those things out, and because you can have internal turnover in each of those departments, and it's good just to keep everybody on board throughout the year. Let's see here. How can I incorporate data handling into my standard operating procedures?
Oh, yes. I think that was something I mentioned in one of my slides. I think what I've seen is that if you're creating a process document or an SOP, actually building in the steps that would require the person to handle that data in a certain way. So say, step 4 is export a report. Step 5 is to upload that report to a secure client portal. And then maybe step 6 is delete original report. So it's just figuring out how do you incorporate, data security, or, when you upload a file, do not save to computer, upload to company network, just including instructions in your SOPs that incorporate the proper data security and data handling that you're looking for on your team.
Right. And then lastly, let's see, how can our company mitigate key person dependency?
Mm,
Hmm. So
big
on that
one.
one, yeah. So on that one, so internally first, uh, that goes back to having really well documented processes and procedures, even down to taking screenshots and screen by screen um, processes on how to do things within the platforms, or whether it's your equity platform, your HRIS platform. Um, Again, calling out who does what internally, and the timelines, kind of having like a project plan, as far as the timelines before, during, and after events, um, or any kind of transactions that occur. And then, of course, you can always look outside. SOS we have individuals that work with our clients. We have teams as well. And that's certainly a quick way and a good way to mitigate that key person dependency internally.
Yeah, I know, Mark, even on our internal outsourcing team that's client facing, we have a clear backup plan for all of our clients. So, within your own company, what's your backup plan? And that's really also just so people can go on vacation. Like who backs you up when you're gone? How do you ensure that they know how to do your job if you're gone? Going back to those clearly documented processes and testing out that redundancy plan before you need it. So before you have to go out for some reason and you've never tested your backup plan, finding opportunities to go through that ahead of time so you're not in a crunch.
All right. I think that was all the questions. We definitely want to thank everyone for joining today. Any last thoughts, Vanessa?
No, I appreciate you guys coming. If you have any follow-up questions, we're here to answer them. Feel free to email us. We'd be happy to walk through anything that you're doing on your side that you could that you'd like little advice on. We do have our toolkit that we encourage you to download. That way you don't have to memorize everything we talked about today. It just kind of reiterates what we went through. And feel free to check out our SOS blog for more information about our SOC 2 Type 2 and what that means for us as a provider. And then talk to your IT team, make sure that, find out what security they have in place. What are the expectations of your team? Working closely with your IT and your HR team to make sure that you have those proper protocols in place is always a great place to start.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We look forward to hearing from you or seeing you on future webinars.
Thank you.